Shooting over.
Yeah. Okay. They go.
I think they're just happy.
No, she was like, you can do it.
No.
And I don't like her anymore. Oh, no. Just kidding. Can we fire her?
Just boot her off the island. Oh, she did some night off.
So my. September 19th or something like that. So we got like a hard. Yeah.
Are we live there, Clerk Chellen? Yes, sir.
I'll let my wife look at that back here Sunday.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and kick this off. This is gonna be city council meeting for the Lake Stevens City Council. It's July 18th, 2023 at 6 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We are live down here in the mill as well as on Zoom. And this meeting will be published on our YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. So with that, I would call the meeting to order and ask everyone to rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I would like to recognize we have some scouts in the audience, probably working on citizenship in the community, citizenship in the nation. Not the world. I mean, this is kind of the world, but no, what are we working on? Oh, well, you're going to see a lot of communication tonight. Perfect. So glad to have you here. Council President, if we could get a roll call, Roll call. Yeah.
Councilmember Daughtry,
Present.
Councilmember Peter Shagan,
Present.
Councilmember Donahue,
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson. Present. Councilmember Jorstad, Councilmember Ewing, and Councilmember Tagent.
Present.
Right, if we get a motion to excuse those who are not present.
Motion to excuse the council persons. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, with that, Council Vice President Peters, can we get an agenda?
Yes, we have an agenda before us tonight. There's one walk-on item. You all received a copy of the draft July 11th minutes, and we would like to add those to the consent agenda, assuming there's no objection to that.
Move to approve the agenda with the add-on.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the agenda for July 18th with the amendment of the Tuesday, July 11th minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You have an agenda.
Great, appreciate it. Let's move forward then with guest business, and our first guest is going to be Kevin from Community Transit with the Needs Assessment Survey.
All right. Thanks very much. My name is Kevin Futhy. I'm a project manager at Community Transit. I want to thank the council and the city staff for bringing us out tonight to present on the work that we've done recently here in Lake Stevens on our pilot project. And most recently, a transportation needs assessment survey, which had over 600 responses here from residents of the town. So with that, I'll go to the next slide.
Yes, sorry about that. Okay, go ahead.
Great. So just really quick, I know you've got a packed agenda tonight, so I'll move pretty quick through my presentation, but I will briefly discuss at Community Transit what our innovative services program is. And I'll talk about the results of the survey that we just completed recently here in Lake Stevens, and then talk about the conclusions that we got from that survey and what the next steps are going to be over the coming months. Great. So innovative services at Community Transit is where we pilot new and flexible transportation services. So traditionally we were running big buses around, but increasingly we find that people need access to transportation that can't be served by a bus. So right now, for example, in the Linwood area, we're piloting an on-demand point-to-point microtransit system, which uses vehicles like the ones you see in the photograph. And we're looking at bringing these to more and more places around Snohomish County. So what these do is they help customers access local destinations that may not be served well by the bus, and they also connect people to the bus when they need to make longer trips. What we're trying to do is make public transit more attractive and more convenient for more people. Go ahead, next slide. So as I mentioned, our first pilot is down in the Linwood, town of Linwood in the Alderwood area. And then Community Transit has chosen 3 more cities to bring our phase 2 pilots, including your town here of Lake Stevens. We'll also be in Arlington and Darrington in the next phase. And then beyond that, hopefully rolling services like this out all around the county. But you all are here in our second phase. So what we do in each of these towns that we've been in is we're trying to understand what are the barriers and pain points for travelers getting around within town and trying to get out of town. And what are the things that are keeping them from, using public transportation? We're trying to assess their familiarity with that existing public transit and other alternate modes of travel. And then using these findings to establish some transportation specific need statements for each community. Go ahead to the next slide. So working with a group of volunteers here in your community, we fielded a survey back during the month of April and into May. We had over 600 people respond to that survey. We had a lot of distribution partners. So we had Lake Stevens Food Bank, places like the library, the senior center, lots of other organizations around town that helped us to get the survey out, resulting in over 600 people taking the survey. And I'll go into the results of what we learned. So this map just shows for the people who took the survey, where they lived, kind of in the different zones around the lake, and then what their most common destinations were within the town of Lake Stevens. Go to the next slide. So one of the things that we learned is that this probably is not a surprise. Most residents are not using things like the bus because most of them are driving where they need to go, or they're riding with others, they're carpooling, and many people are walking for their trips within town. But the bus only showed up for about 3% of people who are frequently using public transportation to get around within Lake Stevens. That said, over the last 3 years, more than 40% of respondents, in fact, here in Lake Stevens, 50%, said that they have used public transit at least one time. And so what that shows us is that, a good number of people are at least open to the idea of using public transportation, but it's not becoming their primary mode because it's not convenient enough as it exists right now. Next slide. So I'll just briefly talk about some of the different demographics that we kind of broke up the data to look at, seniors, youth, people, of different age groups, different categories, and what they said to us through the survey. Go ahead, next, advance that one. Thanks. So for example, people under 35 really focused on the frequency and timing of public transit. They said things like, I think the overall comfort of using a bus system is hampered by how long you have to wait for it. So their top barriers were time it takes to ride the bus versus driving. Go ahead to the next one. And click one more time for me. Thanks. So for seniors, people 65 and over, their top barriers were where the bus goes and sort of the distance that they would have to walk from their home or from where they're traveling to get to and from the bus. So we call this the first last mile problem in transportation, and helping people to overcome that distance is one of the things that we might be able to address in our pilot project. Next slide. These are all in your packet, by the way, so I'm speeding through it, but you can see more of those quotes if you want to look in your materials. So the people from the BIPOC communities, their top barriers, similar refrain, time it takes to ride the bus, where it goes, saying things like there's no bus stop in my area or close enough to where they live. They have to walk 15 minutes or more to get to the bus. Again, these are things that we hopefully can address with smaller vehicles through a pilot project here in your community. Next slide. So for low income people, again, it's the time it takes to ride the bus. We have a lot of programs that make the bus more affordable for folks, either free or low cost, so $1.25 fare as opposed to the regular fare of $2.50. So for people who are low income, the cost didn't really show up as one of the big barriers. It's similar to the other groups. It's just where it goes, how long it takes to ride, and those convenience factors. Next one. For folks with disabilities, similar to the seniors group, the distance that they have to walk or roll to get to the bus, and also having a way home in case of an emergency where the bus may only run every hour or less, And making sure that they have that reliable connection is their most important thing. Again, people are saying things like not enough buses are running on the route, the wait time is too long. We also did some interviews with folks with disabilities and their caregivers, and just to get some more kind of qualitative data from folks that we want to make sure that we're serving well through this pilot project. And they talked about how the DART system, for example, which is one way that people with disabilities can access our services today, is just not reliable or convenient enough for them to rely on. So we heard that loud and clear. We want to make sure we design a pilot that can help address that, and as well as to improve the DART system itself. On the next slide. So I'll just talk about some of the conclusions that we got to from the survey data. We found that the in-demand areas in terms of travel include the areas north of the lake, Frontier Village, Caballero. Most residents are not regularly using public transit, but they're open to occasional use, especially if it can be more convenient than driving, if we can bring the time it takes to use it down, if we can reduce the distance that they have to walk to be able to use it. Residents do tend to have familiarity with to smartphone-based apps to be able to use transit. So that's something we may incorporate in the pilot to some degree. Next slide. Some other takeaways: it's not really easy, and people don't necessarily feel safe getting around the local area without a car. Current options really don't run frequently enough or late enough at night. And people just want more connections to be able to get to the existing transit, the transit centers, especially including people with disabilities who want to be more independent and have more options to travel. So our next steps for this work throughout the rest of this summer, we've taken the survey data, and now the staff at Community Transit are going to be generating 1 to 3 different solution concepts that we will bring back to the community this fall to conduct a survey to get input on those concepts. And then the one that kind of wins out will be put into operation in 2024. So we'll put service into the community, much like we did in Linwood, and then hopefully, get some data back in terms of, is it working for the community? Is it helping more people get around more efficiently and safely within the town? Next slide. Yep, that was my last one. So happy to take any questions or hand it off back to the staff.
What kind of costs do you expect for a participant to use that microtransit service?
So it's the same as our local bus fare. $2.50 is the standard fare, and then low income folks and seniors is a half price, $1.25, and then youth 18 and under ride for free.
And that would be anywhere within Lake Stevens, or could you go Lake Stevens to Linwood for $2.50?
Well, yeah, so our pilot projects are usually oriented towards just short distance travel within a town or within a specific area. But our buses, our buses are on the street right now. The fare is $2.50. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, sorry, trying to get a sense of how this system works. Is it more like taxi based or small bus, eventually transitioning to kind of an Uber Lyft model? What's the analogy here?
So right now we're in a phase where we're designing it. And so like in Linwood, what we ended up with was what we call the microtransit system. It's a lot like Uber or Lyft, but from a public transit agency. There's an app that you can use to hail your ride. It comes pick you up at your home or wherever you are. It takes you to your destination within a fixed service area. So it can't take you all the way to another city or the airport or something like that. But within your immediate community, it's providing in Linwood, it's about a 3-mile across zone. So the broader area here is more like 5 or 6 miles across potentially. So there we would have to do some work to figure out, can we put something like that here around the lake and still achieve good wait times and efficiency with that? We're going to design, like I said, about 1 to 3 different options and then ask the community for input on those. My assumption is that one of them would be something like we're doing in Linwood. Maybe we'll come up with something more like a circulator around the lake that could deviate to pick you up if you call and ask it to kind of come off the route. But the community working group that we have is going to give us some input on this. And then, like I said, we'll do a second survey. Right now, we're planning for that to be going out in October to get more input on these different solutions. And then hopefully people will tell us which they prefer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I am thrilled. This sounds like exactly what we need. And I know from doorbelling that people need this. I think it would be a fabulous thing.
Well,
So,
thank you. Thanks for the
March
feedback.
on.
Right, we will. Thank you.
All right, great. Anything else for Kevin? Appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate
you.
your
Thanks so
report
much.
and your work on it. All right, Jeff, we got a new police officer. We like new police officers. We like all new city employees, but we really like police officers.
Mayor, council, thank you for tonight. I'm going to introduce your newest police officer, entry level officer, Robert Trenton. Robert moved from Oregon to Marysville in 2003, and his parents were here asked to start a church in Lake Stevens. Robert graduated from Marysville Getchell High School in 2013, and during that time, from 2011 to 2012, he was a Lake Stevens Police Explorer. We're glad to have his wife, Maddie. They've been married since 2015, his oldest daughter, Miranda, his middle son, Levi, and his youngest, who's very vocal, is Luke, and we're very excited to have him. Robert comes from working with his brother in competitive landscaping recently. He was also worked at Leschwatz growing up from 2012 to 2019, and he also worked a little stint with the Washington State Patrol as a front desk cadet down at headquarters. We're very excited. Robert likes fixing vehicles, hunting, fishing, spending time and with his family, but he was very impressive today because we're going through all of our assets, and I had 98 assets that were overdue for maintenance, and he got us down to almost 50 today. It's great to have him. He's going to go to the academy in February of 2024, but the good news is Lanto, who was scheduled to go in January of 2024, has now been told he needs to be ready within the next 2 weeks. So we're excited to hopefully get him down to the academy, and with the Skagit County Regional Academy starting in November, we're hoping that his time will move up and he'll be have to be ready with this plan is. So with this, I'd like to introduce Robert and his family to
Great.
the council.
Perfect.
Okay, fast, 2 weeks. Let's bring her up.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
We'll see you, Lou.
All right, perfect. That's what we do. That's what we do, what we do. Let's go with another employee introduction with Sarah. Tanya, no little Lukey's or anything? In tow, okay.
Dinner's being cooked for her at home, which is why she's alone. So she gets to go home and enjoy dinner next.
Oh, great, great.
This is Tanya. She is the Parks and Recreation Department's new recreation specialist. Tanya joins the city from Lake Stevens after 7.5 years at a Redmond-based ISO Inc. That company is a tabletop gaming publisher. Prior to that, she worked as a property and casual insurance adjuster, a bank teller, an early childhood education provider, a substitute teacher, an office manager, customer service specialist, and an accountant, which means she's been in training to be a Parks and Rec person for a long, long time. All of her skills. Tanya and her family relocated to Lake Stevens in 2017. Prior to that, she's married to a master sergeant who is retired. They were in the Air Force, and that offered multiple travel opportunities. She spent 14 years living in England, Canada, Korea, as well as 5 US states. While not fluent in foreign language, her travel gave her functional knowledge of Korean, German, French, and several other varieties of English. Her husband, Christopher, who we can all call Crispy, takes care of the house and garden. Their youngest child, Callum, started at Mount Pilchuck and is getting prepared to start the junior year at Lake Stevens High School. The eldest, Jonathan, is pursuing a degree in accounting and his CPA accreditation from Spokane branch of Lewis and Clark College. Outside of work, Tanya enjoys reading books across a variety of genres, with fantasy and history at the top of the list. She enjoys researching historical methods of crafting, sewing, brewing, dancing, singing, and cooking. She applies her gathered knowledge to projects for the Society of the Creative Anachronism. I knew I was going to butcher that one. Group she's been a member of for over 25 years. Recently, she's been baking a lot of treats, making jam from the raspberries growing in her garden, and canning all the delicious fruit available in our area. And she's now within walking distance to work. Welcome, Tanya.
Great. Oh,
Nice to see you again.
Welcome, Tanya.
thanks, Tanya. Appreciate you being here.
What time did you get all those documents I sent last night?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, great. Let's good to have new employees on board. Let's move to citizens comments and let's look first online. Do we have anyone with their hands up? If you wish to provide citizens comments, please raise your digital hand.
Yeah, since we have quite a few people, again, the mayor was just saying, if you want to speak to the council and you're online, please raise your digital hand so I can let you into the meeting. Not seeing any hands.
No digital hands, and we have any green sheets? Anybody in the audience? Nobody, huh? Wow. All right, let's move forward then. Let's go to council business, council president.
Yes, council business. How about if we start out with Councilmember Tangent?
Yes, attended the Lake Stevens Pickleball Tournament this weekend. 250 plus people. Great event. Everyone from Canada, people from Oregon, all over eastern side of the mountains were there. A lot of age levels, 60 plus, 50 plus, open divisions. It was a real professional tournament. Great time for everybody, and everyone just thinks Lake Stevens is so nice, and the courts up at the Cavallero, really nice addition to run the tournament this year. It's in place of Aquafest because there's a big tournament in Seattle. So otherwise they would hold it during Aquafest, but kind of a part two. Next year they look to get it back on the Aquafest tournament, but good time, good for our community.
Councilmember Dickinson.
All right, so the Lake Stevens Senior Center continues to amaze with a field trip to the Peace Arch, luncheons for as many as 50 twice a week, and lunch and a movie today. Thank you to the staff and board for all their hard work. The farmers market and music in the park last Wednesday were so much fun, and I stopped off at the Grimm House to see the folks visiting there, and I met young Ali, who is going to volunteer. I love the hands-on history that the museum offers to help young people get a better idea of our history here. They told me that 65 to 90 community members come by every week to check out the Grimm House. Thanks to Public Works and the community members for helping to make it shine. I attended the school board meeting afterwards, and the celebration of all their staff and students this year is so encouraging too. But this is all positive, but now I have to tell you something not so positive. Sadly, a new Lake Stevens parent spoke to the board of racist bullying at one of the schools. This man serves in the U.S. Navy. He did say that her school is doing their best. It has happened repeatedly, sadly. The courage to speak up is no small feat. I was encouraged by the support the board gave him, and I know they will do anything they can to address this issue. I also attended the meeting with the Historic Society on Friday with Councilmember Peter Hagan and various other folks that I see here right now. And it was great. They have kicked off their fundraiser for the exhibits at the new museum called Preserving Our History for Future Generations. They will have a pop-up museum in the mill during Aquafest, which they did that before, and will feature the history of Aquafest, the train in the lake with the chicken for photo ops, plus a raffle with donated items and gift cards for local businesses that maybe Councilmember Peter Hagan might win. I don't know. Could be. Anyway, they also will have an ice cream sale at the museum storage facility with a 50s diner theme. I want to thank Kristen Odegaard, the teacher at Lake Stevens High School, and the Key Club for volunteering for that. They have planned numerous funders throughout 2023 and 24, such as a history walk, tea parties, and a Halloween tour at Machias Cemetery. And finally, a shout out to Councilman Daughtry and to all who are working to make Aquafest happen. I know that was a lot. I'm done.
Councilmember Donahue.
Well, fortunately, I do not have a lot. The planning commission meeting for this week was rescheduled, so that didn't happen yesterday. I've been told that the next meeting, which I believe is on August 7th, will be robust to make up for it. So look forward to that, but otherwise nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Daughtry.
I attended GSRC Transportation Policy Board and Transportation Caucus for transit agencies. We're just basically talking about the differences in what the feds are shoving out for money for transit agencies and for transportation projects throughout the nation, and how to go about getting that money for us. That's about all that was on there. I am knee deep in Aquafest planning. 2 weeks from now, I'll be down here getting ready to put it up and hoping to see everybody there. I did come by your event this weekend. I looked for you. I didn't see you. I think you were on the court. I don't know, maybe. I didn't see you. But there was a lot of people down there with weapons. They all had weapons in their hand. I don't, geez. And I looked at it and said, you don't want to bend over here. It just, you're gonna get swatted. Anyway, it looked like a lot of fun. I might try it sometime. Other than that, there's not a whole lot else going on right now. It was nice to see one of the community transit people here tonight. They've been working hard on that. The stuff coming out of Linwood for the microtransit there is the numbers are getting bigger and bigger every day for riders on that little zip. And I think we're going to have a great time here too with whatever they come up with. We'll see what the Citizens Advisory Council says, or advisory team says about that. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, thank you. Attended Sewer District Board of Directors meeting last Thursday, and nothing to report there other than things are moving forward as usual with their operations. Historical Society, as Councilmember Dickinson's indicated, I would call it maybe a planning future museum type scoping meeting, maybe. So things are moving along in that. We'll probably have more discussions at our retreat on that issue. And then also I would like to thank either Public Works and or the police department. We did have some graffiti on the new wall along Highway 9, and that was taken care of very fast. So I do appreciate that activity. So thank you to both departments. That's all.
Great. Thank you, Council. Just a couple things for myself. I attended the pickleball event as well, and I would just like to give a shout out to the school district. Last year, we asked them to paint those tennis courts with pickleball courts as well. And so you end up having 16? No. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 16. Yeah, 16 courts. And it was nice. They actually painted the pickleball courts in the tan of Cavallaro, so it fits right in, looks really nice up there. They just like to commend the school district on doing that. It's a small thing from the school district, but it's a big thing for our economic development. It's just, as I sat there and watched them play pickleball, they were eating from, the teriyaki joint across the street and all that sort of stuff. So it was a great event. It's in the staff. We've been working on getting prep for the budget discussions this fall, as well as looking at capital projects for next year. I had a good showing at Starbucks with Mayor Starbucks with the mayor last week. A lot of good discussions there with several folks. I worked as well with my fellow mayors on our public safety coalition that I chair, and we have fixed a date for having Sam Quinones, who's a fentanyl opioid expert, come into town and do a community-wide discussion, and that's going to be September 28th. Right now we're planning on Cavallaro mid to do that event at. We just got to fix that up, make sure we're squared away with the school district on that. And then this weekend, I also will be attending a retirement party for Doug Levy at his place. So I'm looking forward to that, seeing him off riding into the sunset. So that is what I have. So let's move to city department reports. Aaron, did you have anything?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council.
there is a Public Works Department report in your packet. And I thought I would project it so folks in the audience can see it. So let's do that. Give me just a moment. There it is. Okay, great. My name's Aaron Halverson. I'm the Public Works Director for the city. And so once a month, we try to do a department report for the council. And I'll try to move kind of quickly, but there's some interesting images in our report. So as we're working through our American Public Works Association accreditation, we're trying to complete policies and procedures, sign them and train staff on them. It is a large project. There are hundreds of them. And we have a lean expert on staff. So she put together this wonderful visual management system you see in the image there so that we can move practices, physically move them through the process, policies and procedures and practices, and see it happening live. And there's just something about having a board like that on your wall. I know they do it in school too. It applies to adults to keep track of projects in progress, colors, stickies. It's going pretty well. Okay. In terms of work orders, the city Public Works Department is using ViewWorks to track its work, and it's opened it up to the public. There's an app. It's called Citizen View. You can download it. I'm getting some feedback. Quite know why. Anyway, anyone can download it that lives in the city, or generally anyone, and they can put in service requests to the Public Works Department. So if you feel like the crosswalk that's near your house doesn't have adequate striping, you could put in a service request, and potentially, if we have resources and time and see there's a need, we'll come out and restripe the crosswalk, for example. So what we're seeing is that streets is a great example. There are 74 open service requests and only 31 have been closed. And so the line for service requests and work orders are coming in at kind of a steady pace, and our crew is kind of not keeping up, right? And we anticipated that would happen. So we're going to keep track of that, and we'll bring some ideas back to council and to the mayor to talk about some solutions to those problems. And it's not unique. Facilities is the same problem. The chief and I were just talking about it before the meeting. We want to provide good service. We just need the resources to do it. And now we have some data that supports some solution alternatives. In terms of fleet, we're getting our vehicles from Enterprise. So you're hopefully we're seeing newer vehicles with our for our employees to use. They're safer. They're more fuel efficient. They're better vehicles. The crew, the Public Works crew, cleaned State Route 92 catch basins, swept it, mowed the vegetation. Those catch basins have not been cleaned in, I'll call it modern history. Folks that have been on the crew for 15 years have never cleaned those catch basins. And the reason is it's a traffic control effort. It takes a lot of coordination. They did wonderful work. They did it all at once. I didn't get a lot of complaints about traffic on 92. And anyway, the system is going to function better out there. And the vegetation's trimmed back. It was quite the effort. I'll keep moving here. Lake management. We have the city contracts with a company called Aquatechnics. They do herbicide treatment on the lake. They also do phosphorus treatment to reduce the amount of phosphorus. But this year they're doing herbicide. And so on July 6th, they treated the non-native aquatic plants, and beginning, is it not working? Further away. Okay, how about that? Okay. And on July 20th, this week, Thursday, they're going to treat the more of the native nuisance plants, the things that are around docks. It's that large leaf pondweed. It's this one that you might be seeing, as opposed to this one. This one's non-native. We need to get it out. This one it's actually a good beneficial species for the aquatic organisms. It's definitely not beneficial for recreation. Okay. Stormwater infrastructure mapping. We're 80% through mapping private infrastructure. That's a huge lift. It's really great. It's going to help us maintain our system better. Keep moving. Projects, the gateway sign, you can see the image right there. It's been made, they're powder coating it. We're wrapping that up. That will be up as soon as possible. As soon as we receive it, we're gonna put that sign on the concrete wall at South Lake Stevens Road and State Route 9. We'll order the same for the wall that's at the roundabout to the north. Sunset Beach Park improvements, that project's construction will begin on July 31st, so that park's gonna close. July 31st, okay? At the same time, they're gonna replace the pier, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit later tonight. The Mill Spur parking lot, which is right there, it's done. ADA project has begun. The ADA project is American Disabilities Act project. It's an accessibility project to replace ramps and non-compliant sidewalk issues throughout the city, across the city. And the contract amount is $750,000. So a lot of work is going to be done through this summer. We're going to try to get everything done around the schools first, so they're ready to go in September. There's a capital project schedule. I won't go into it. There it is. Any questions?
I have two. Regarding ViewWorks. The first one is a clarifying question. Can I assume that the cases shown here in the pie charts are those unique cases? So they've been deduplicated if the same issues reported multiple times?
They're not duplicates. So
Okay.
Those have all been vetted by the staff.
Okay, and I know you're going to talk more about this later on, but just at this early stage, do you have any sense that pacing on the issues being reported versus your ability to keep up? Do you have a sense of whether that's an increase over time in unique issues, or is it more of an awareness thing? Your department is becoming more aware of stuff around the city because of the app?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think we're getting more citizen requests now because it's easier. And that's a good thing. We want to hear that feedback. We want to provide service, but I think we're doing a better job tracking the reoccurring maintenance activities. So those could kind of stack up too. So it's a combination of the two.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and just to jump on that, I think we also know more of the requests, citizens' requests, whereas our previous system fell into a black hole. Now we actually visually see them, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to mention one more thing. The city I just wanted to inform you, so you know it's coming. The Public Works Department, working with Russ's team, we're taking a look at some options to procure property on Hartford Drive. This is related to our flood project, our downtown flood mitigation project. And we're going to bring that back to you when you return from the break.
Any other questions for him? I would say that I heard firsthand yesterday of some great improvements within the city from someone who started as a seasonal and came home very excited that he got his own cell phone from the city and that he gets his work orders on the cell phone. Which I was like, well, of course, that's what we should be doing. And that's the efficient way to do it. And then he was even more excited that he gets to read policies via Power DMS and know that he gets checked off and knows that it's done. So a lot of the things that we are getting more efficient as a city are becoming culture and just the way we do business, which is where we want to be. So yeah, good stuff. All right, anything else, Aaron? All right, great, because last but not least, within the city department report is the clerk squared report that we've all been hanging on the edge for the JLARC.
Hi, council and mayor. Thank you for having us tonight to talk about public records requests. I don't have a cool slideshow presentation or staff report the way Aaron did, but here to talk about public records and how many we processed in 2022. So I've got Caitlin Weaver here, as you all know, Deputy City Clerk, and then Julie Hubert, who is in charge of the Police Department public records requests, her and her staff. And I will not pretend to know all that she knows about complex police records requests. They do an amazing job. But so we have to file this report. It's called a JLARC report, and it's the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee. And every year we file this with the state and we let them know how many requests that we had and how long it took us to fulfill them and how much it cost. So in and that's also because we spend at least $100,000 in staff and equipment and attorney costs. So that's why we have to file this report. So in 2022, the memorandums in your packet, we received 1,466 requests. Again, that's city and police. 1,465 were closed within that same year. And what I'm most really proud of, and I'll continue to say, is the 1,307 that were closed within 5 business days. So I think that just goes to show how quickly we try to stay on top of these, get them fulfilled, get them closed, and get the records to the requester. So there is times that we have to partially deny records requests or redact them. Those are very specific categories that happens, and that's usually HR type of reports, attorney-client privilege, personnel information. So 603 of those requests out of the 1,466 did have some redactions to them. So I like to say that, 98% of what we do is 100% open to the public, but there are those times when it falls under that category. So, and we explain that redaction to the requester, and we provide the RCW that says that we can redact this information. And at the bottom here, the first page is the number of requests by requester type. I just thought this was kind of interesting, who we're getting requests from. And I'm going to let Caitlin talk a little bit about staff costs. And that's on page 2. So with this portal that we're using in Next Request, it's really nice. We've been able to track exactly how much it's costing us to process these requests.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I'm just going to briefly talk about staff and equipment costs. So total staff hours between the police department and various city staff within departments beyond Kelly and I was 1,382 hours spent on public records requests for last year. Estimated staff costs, and that's the hours by our salary and benefits, which is what the JLARC asks us to do for that calculation, was $92,530. So that was spent on processing these requests. The cost of our Next Request system, which is an incredible system that allows us to stay organized and document everything we're doing. And it's really effective for both the customer as well as staff, was $12,465.20. Within the calendar year of 2022, we did not receive any claims alleging that we had violated the Public Records Act, which was excellent. That's always our goal, beyond excellent customer service. The last 2 stats that the JLARC did not collect, but we do actually track, is we spent $19,413.50 on legal advice from our attorneys and working with redactions. And revenue collected total was $95.64. To recoup those costs.
So later tonight, we'll talk a little bit about a change we want to make in the fee resolution and talk a little bit about the public records policy or the revised public records policy that we're bringing forward. But that kind of gives you an overview, at least, of how many we're processing, how long it's taking us. Best practice has always been about 20% of our job should be public records requests, but we spend a lot more time than that. And if we only spent 20%, we would have a backlog. So we try to keep up on them, as quickly as we can. And this is a collaboration with all of our staff. So everybody is amazing. I'll get a request, I'll reach out to planning, I'll reach out to Public Works. Everybody knows we have tight deadlines and we have to abide by state laws. And so it's a team effort. Sure.
Are there any questions?
I do have one. So I want to make sure I don't know if I'm understanding this correctly or maybe assuming the $19-ish thousand in legal fees. Is that related to the 600 some odd cases? Okay, so less than half the cases are running up those legal fees.
Yeah, or just questions on how we need to proceed or getting some advice on how to proceed. But most of the time, yes, it's going to be reductions. And yeah, I guess that's probably good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for John? All right, great report. Appreciate it. You guys do a lot of really good work behind the scenes that nobody knows about, but is vital. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second,
I've got a motion and I'm asking for discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's go to the public hearing and I'm gonna ask Greg for some guidance here to make sure that we do this one correctly. Is there anything different than a regular public hearing since this one's closed?
Well, there's a couple of things. Because you're acting as final judges as to whether this particular rezone meets the requirements of code. The appearance of fairness doctrine applies, and what that means is that the city is required under state law for hearings such as this, where the council members are not making policy, but they're acting as judges. What they do must not only be in fact fair, but it must appear fair to the public. So there are a few questions that I need to ask. Okay, I need to ask each council member, have any of you had any contact with persons that are either in favor of this rezone or against this rezone? Okay, are there any one of you who believe that for some reason, whatever it might be, that you cannot be a fair judge of this rezone application? Okay, and finally, to our live audience and to our virtual audience, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to challenge any council members' participation in making this decision? Anyone here? Okay, and could you ask
Anybody online that would like to challenge this? I'm not seeing anybody.
okay, the second thing that I'll discuss is that this is a closed record hearing. What that means is that the facts that the council need to look at and consider have already been developed. Either through the administrative process, which included a hearing before the city's hearing examiner. Anyone who wishes to speak in the public hearing with respect to the rezone, you can't bring in new facts or evidence for the council to consider. You need to refer to facts or evidence that's in the hearing record. So that's a requirement for this type of proceeding.
All right, great.
My comments.
All right, so with that, we'll open the public hearing and we'll get a staff report from Christie.
All right, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Mayor. So Christy Schmidt, I'll be presenting the rezone closed record hearing this evening for the City Council. Within your packets this evening, you do have records. You do have an exhibit which contains the ordinance 1164. That is up for review and adoption this evening. Exhibit 2 contains the hearing examiner recommendation that's being forwarded to the City Council. This also includes the background exhibits of the staff report and those exhibits to the staff report. Basic rezone information, the applicant was Ryan Larson of the Land Pro Group. The property owner is South Lake Ridge LLC. The property addresses is within your packet and what's presented on the screen. It does contain 4 parcels. The property size is 25 acres. The plans are to develop this property under a preliminary plat. That preliminary plat has already gone to public hearing by the hearing examiner. That hearing examiner report, that approval is contingent upon the rezone. And I would like to point out, just for the education of the public, that preliminary plat has been reviewed in compliance with all city codes, which includes critical areas regulations, stormwater, streets, and all the development regulations within the code. So taking a look here, there's an aerial up on the screen. You can see the site. I would like to point out general location factors. This is over to the west. This is 117th Drive Southeast. If you were to come out of City Hall, head down Machias Cutoff and head south up 117th, you would see an entrance or a future entrance to the property over here on the east side. The secondary access over here, you can see the property along 20th Street Southeast. This property was annexed into the city in 2021. So for background rezone process and information, the city received this application in early February 3rd to be exact. Both the application and the hearing was duly noticed. There was a public meeting on February 21st. We did have a good attendance for that. We had, I believe, around 12 people attend that. A rezone is a type 4 permit with the hearing examiner recommendation, which goes to the city council, which is why we are here tonight for a final decision. The rezone is exempt from SEPA per the WAC, and that is because the zoning and land use designation has previously been established within the comprehensive plan, and there's been an EIS conducted on that. Here's some basic information of the proposal before the council this evening. The comp plan designation is medium density residential. The current zoning is R6. The applicant is requesting a proposed rezone to R8 and R12. And per our zoning matrix within the code, this zoning district is permissible and consistent with the medium density land use designation. So here's a graphic that shows the current zoning over here on the left. It's all in yellow, which is the R6 zoning. The applicant is requesting it to be changed to the R8, R12. And as you can see above it, the High-Z project, this has already been approved to be zoned to R8, R12. And currently, if you were to drive by, that is under construction at this time. Over to the south, the property surrounding this to the south is also zoned R8, R12. So there is consistency both to the north and the south of the R8, R12 zoning. Here's just a look at the city's land use designation map. As you can see, it's medium density residential. The background information that's detailed within the staff report in your packet, it does state that the max density for the R6 zone is 78 dwelling units. Max density for the proposed R8, R12 is 106. If the proposed density under the R8, R12 is approved, the applicant is looking for approximately to construct 106 dwelling units with the associated preliminary plat. As far as environmental constraints on the site, there are 6 wetlands, there are 2 streams, and 1 unregulated water course. These items, critical areas, have been reviewed for compliance by the hearing examiner under the preliminary plat application. As far as looking at rezone and traffic impacts, if the proposal were to move to the R8, R12 zoning, it would result in an increase of 33 p.m. peak hour trips as compared to the R6 zoning. This would have a negligible effect on the level of service within the city. Findings in the hearing examiner recommendation is detailed within your packet. The hearing examiner has determined that the rezone does meet the approval criteria for rezones found in the Lake Stevens Municipal Code. It also meets the SEPA and public notice requirements. The hearing examiner did hold an open record hearing for the rezone on June 26th. And that recommendation of conditional approval is within your packet this evening. So before you for consideration is ordinance 1164. And with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions by the city council.
Any questions for Christie? Right.
Yes, I did call Christie and had a good talk with her. I'm concerned about this plat because I get in my car and drive places. You know this about me. I tell everybody I have to go look. It is a beautiful woodland. It's stunning. And to think that we will cut those trees down when the I can't say that. I know.
Yeah, at this
Okay,
point.
cut me off. Okay, that's.
No,
okay.
no,
No,
I don't mean it to.
I
to
understand.
cut
No,
you
I
off.
appreciate that.
It's, you should make questions. at
Questions.
time,
Okay, sorry.
And that's more appropriate for the
Okay,
discussion.
okay,
Yes,
okay. Thank
if
you,
we can
thank
do
you,
that.
thank you.
We want to keep. our
Okay,
minds
so my
open.
question, okay, I do have a question.
Okay.
Yay, I have a question.
Keep our minds open.
Forget I said that, okay. Would these be affordable houses? Because I know we desperately need those. That's my question. I don't know.
So at this point in time, the developers indicated that the single family homes proposed under the preliminary plat, that they would be market rate.
Thank you.
Ryan, do you have any questions?
I do. I apologize if this is in our packet, and I missed it. Do you happen to know how many dwelling units are currently on the property in question? I'm looking at a map here and
Sure, I do actually. There's 2 single-family residences on the parcels, and there's also quite a few outbuildings.
okay, sorry, I think I misunderstood. And I'm looking at an aerial image, and so the top left corner of the red, the area that's bounded in red, it looks like there's a neighborhood constructed there with several houses. Is that not?
So here, I'm gonna get my pointer going here. Let's take a look at this. We'll do the laser pointer. This is all vacant. This area was previously harvested under a forest practices permit. The only 2 single-family homes are right here where the pointer's at, this one over here and right over here. So these are the only 2 dwelling units on site, and they access from 20th.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I'm too far north. Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Christian?
Planner Schmidt, what is an unregulated water course?
Yes.
That's an excellent question. So by our code, we have 4 different categories of streams. An unregulated one means it's non-fish bearing and it's not connected to other water bodies, and it's within a certain size. So it's the lowest category of a water course, so it's not deemed or classified as a stream.
So is that a sense? Is it categorized as a sensitive area? I mean, is that area allowed to be protected or required to be protected or allowed to be filled?
Yes to both, depending what the developer would like to do. In this particular case, some of the area is going to be impacted and mitigated for over on the eastern portion of the site. Without going into the merits of the preliminary plat, which I'd refer you to in the hearing examiner's decision, this is one of the few projects that actually has a net increase through the plat of environmental benefits.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great, let's go ahead and move to open this up for public comments from the audience. And is there anybody online who wishes to provide public comments on this, just the subject?
So we are in a closed record hearing, correct? So it would have to be the applicant?
If the applicant certainly has an opportunity to speak, as well as anybody who is a party of record
Okay,
to this rezone. That is that they have participated in the hearing for the hearing examiner. They've sent in comment to the staff during the progress of
So only people who've previously spoken on it.
yeah, yes, who have.
so I have a hand up from Annette. I can go ahead and we can ask her.
Is that,
Yes, she is a party of record, Annette Gamble.
Okay,
Yes.
okay? Annette, you have 3 minutes to address the council on this.
Annette, I am promoting you into the meeting, so if you can look at your screen, you'll show up as an attendee. Or as a panelist, excuse me. We'll do it this way. Annette, can you hear me? Annette? Did I lose her? Give her permission to talk. Oh, there, here she comes. Annette, can you hear us? Unmute yourself. Annette? I see that your speaker is on. Can you say something, Annette?
Is she the only one?
Yeah.
Okay. And is there anybody in the audience? Seeing no hands raised, so we're just seeing if we can get in that.
Oh, she's unmuted.
She's Annette, I see your hand up and you are unmuted. But we cannot hear you.
Do you want to give her a phone number that she can call and we can put her on the speaker?
Okay.
And I would like to point out that Annette Gamble, she does have public comment. She has provided both written comment for both files. They should be they are exhibits within the hearing examiner's decision for public comments.
Okay. Let's see if we can give it a good college try to get her on here.
Annette, we're going to give you a phone number to call. 360-913-5450. Let me say it one more time. Sure. That number again is 360-913-5450.
My guess is she's having problems with her sound because everything on our end is open for her.
Okay.
Hmm.
You don't think she can hear us?
Oh, hold on.
Oh, she's might be calling.
Annette, can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't make my microphone work.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can mute your computer so there's no echo, I've got you up to the speaker and this room can hear you very well.
Oh, now it's rejoining me.
I'm putting her back. So she can.
Hang on, my computer. I had a hard time getting on to the Zoom.
Okay, you're on the phone and we can hear you up to a speaker. So if you want to go ahead. Yep, we can hear you.
To rejoin me again. My question was, I believe that this development has a cross.
Annette, don't worry about your computer at this point. Go ahead and just.
I'm gonna go away from my computer. Anyway, that's too close to my computer. My question was, this development has a crossing of that creek with services. What services are crossing the creek? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, what services are crossing the creek?
If I'm correct, there's a crossing of the creek.
So does she have a question or a statement? What?
She has a question.
I don't know if it's electricity or.
Okay, well, we wouldn't answer questions in this forum.
Annette, this is just public comment, so we're just listening for comment
Not questions.
and we're not answering questions.
Oh, okay. The public comment was, I guess, did I already send you something about the barred owls? They are still in the area.
Yeah.
I know that they had 2 chicks this year.
We,
And that I do think that there might be fish in that creek. How do they know there's no fish? Did the environmentalists come and determine that?
okay, any other comments, Annette?
Yeah, I think there's fish in the creek.
Yeah, we heard that comment. Do you have any other comments?
I didn't hear what you said.
He got the comment about the fish in the creek. Do you have any further comments?
Okay, and I guess that you're gonna do whatever you want. There's no way to prevent the city from adding more houses than the area can support with traffic. So that was my comment. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Annette. Appreciate the comments.
Thank you.
There is no other hands up.
Bye.
Okay, let's go ahead and close public comments portion of the hearing. Any further comment, Chrissy?
No further.
Okay.
No
any
further comment.
Questions by the council of staff?
I would assume there was a biological assessment, critical areas assessment done on the property that determined that we have critical areas on site and those are being mitigated.
Yes, that's correct. And in fact, the applicant pre-coordinated and already had received permits for approval from Army Corps and also from Department of Ecology for this particular project.
So we've had City of Marysville, Army Corps, Department of Ecology and
Tribes.
Tulalip tribes
And DFW.
all commenting on this project.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Christine?
One, just to be clear on what we're really discussing here, it's already zoned for building, right? We're talking about the addition of roughly 30 more dwelling units is what's at stake here.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So floor is open to discussion deliberation by the council.
This time I can speak. Yeah, it is a beautiful place and I know that we can protect the woodlands and think wisely when we put those houses in, which we desperately need. And I also know that Lake Stevens is unfortunate in that we are challenged as far as land that we can build houses on. We are really struggling to try and keep up our population. So I will just ponder some more about the trees, and that's all I'm going to do. And so that's all I got to say.
Okay, any other discussion deliberation? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and close the public hearing, and can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 1164, rezoning the, how do you pronounce it? Bachelor phase 1 and phase 2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1164, correct? And do I have any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, note, Councilmember Dickinson was a no. All right, let's move forward then on the agenda to action item 12A. Resolution 2023-12, Julie and Kelly.
Thank you. The clerk's office and myself have been working on items related to public disclosure. And the one we're bringing forward right now is updates to the fee schedule. I'm going to be speaking on body worn camera fees, which is in your packet on page 89 of the entire packet. The RCW allows for us to charge for redaction of body worn camera video. It is the only place in the Public Records Act that we can also include staff time for that, as well as the reasonable cost of technology. When we did our cost study, we came down to, we spent on average 2 to 4 minutes per 1 minute of video for just redaction. And so that equates to up to 2 hours for a 30-minute video. We worked with our city attorney's office and we took the average salary of our records staff because we would never have an entry-level records person doing this particular work. And so we came up with 84 cents per minute and chose to not include the cost of technology into the cost assessment at this time because it would take the average cost to up to over $2 per minute. And that's not something we wanted to do for our citizens. The Public Records Act for this does allow people who are involved in the video and their attorneys to get unredacted video at no fee. So this really would be redactions for people who are unrelated to the events. And the whole fee study was in the packet. And it was pretty specific.
So Julie, if I wanted a 7 to 9 minute traffic stop video, what's that going to cost me?
Was it your traffic stop video?
Sure. Let's just asking for a friend.
If it was yours, you would get it for free.
Okay. And if I was asking for a friend?
So it was an 8-minute video. It would, for an 8-minute video at 84 cents per minute, you're looking at $6.72.
Okay. So not really breaking anyone's bank.
No.
Okay.
So this is in line with the costs that the state allows.
Yes.
it's completely in line with the RCW. Again, we did work with Andrew in Greg's office to review our entire study and our approach to the study, how we did it and how we came up with the costs and it was completely in line with what's allowed.
Okay, so I will take the second part of that. So in the packet there in the fee resolution, one request that we have from the Public Records Office is to reduce what I call the courtesy credit from $5 to $1. So right now, the way it's written, and let me use electronic files as an example. The fee for electronic files is 5 cents per 4 PDFs. For us to get to $5 is a lot of records. I think we estimated today 400 plus probably. And when I got here too, I couldn't believe seeing that in there. I mean, that's very nice of us to give that courtesy credit, but a lot of other jurisdictions have no courtesy credit or, possibly $1, maybe $2. So I am proposing that we reduce that to $1. That would be for an electronic files, that would be 80 files that somebody could get for free. And after 80 electronic files, we would then start charging. I think it would help us to see that we're still engaged with the requester, that they're still interested in the records. If they have to come down and pay a fee for an installment, it would be minimal. But we know that they're still engaged with us and they still want additional records. So I'd like to see that fee be reduced. And Caitlin brought up a good point today, and I'll let her talk too, that most of our requests are within the 80 files anyway. This is not going to affect a majority of our requests.
Most of our routine requests are well under 80 files. And these are PDFs that could be a 200-page PDF. So it's really just 80 files, but it could be many more documents that they're able to get for that, courtesy $1. We did review the fee resolutions for Monroe, Snohomish, Marysville, and Everett, and I didn't see any significant waivers at all in them. So the $5 just seems sort of kind of unique in itself. And we wanted to update that based on the numbers we're seeing in our JLARC and based on the work we're doing. And we still think we can really give excellent customer service, but like Kelly said, I think it would be a good adjustment to make.
And I don't believe that would raise fees you may see the JLAC report next year and possibly we recovered another small amount. I mean, it's not going to be a large amount of money.
There's no intention of a fee waiver. It really is just a credit reduction. Make it kind of reasonable and in line with what our neighboring municipalities are doing.
Anything else on that? All right, can we get a motion on?
Councilmember Dottie.
Sorry, quick question. Just based on the JLARC breakdown, do you have any sense, even if it's just kind of your best guess of the entities that are exceeding that 80 page or 80 document limit? Are they individual mostly? And corporate entity, it's mostly individuals that are exceeding that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's the any and all records regarding Mill Spur for the last 3 years. It's those kinds of records that produce a lot of emails and PDFs and electronic documents.
Okay, and then I guess I should clarify individual with that. So like an individual reporter, would that be classified as an organization or would it be the individual?
They would be media. Did you say reporter?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Okay, so an individual would be like a private citizen saying, I want any and all. Okay, thank you.
And I think that concludes.
Okay, so if we could get a motion on this and we can do discussion under the motion.
I'll move to the resolution 2023-12 revised fee resolution public records fee schedule update.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We get the second?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And let's go to 12B resolution 2023-11.
So I promise this is the last time you're gonna hear about public records requests today. It's kind of a 3-part. Okay, so tonight in your packet is an updated city's public records policy. Just for a little background, the Public Records Act, which is mandated by RCW, requires us to have a agency-specific PRA policy. So that's what that is in your packet. It was last updated in 2018. We wanted to go through it and clean it up a little bit so that it could reflect our current practices. We now have an online portal. It was important to put that into our policy. Body worn cameras that Julie was just speaking of. And I do want to just clarify any misconception out there. This policy does not raise fees except for the $5 credit we just talked about was reduced to $1, but it does not, and it doesn't change the way we process our records. I think you can see by our JLAG report, we closed 1,300 of them within 5 business days. So customer service is still a focus. And we've always required a deposit. We don't utilize it very often, but it's always been in the policy that we could require a deposit if it's going to be a large records request. So none of that has changed. Really, again, talking about the online portal, the body worn cameras, and I'm going to have Caitlin talk about one provision that is in this revised policy that was not in there before.
We added one provision that we found some other jurisdictions were doing, and it was in regards to a single identified requester putting in multiple requests all at the same time. So not a bot, but an actual person. This kind of stemmed out of a trend that we're seeing, and I just wanted to give an example of kind of where this discussion originated from. On June 30th, we received 15 requests in a matter of an hour. We received 10 requests from one requester and 5 requests from another requester. So when these come in, they all have identical due dates. They all at this point without this provision must be worked on simultaneously all at the same time. And all 15 of these were assigned to our building official in our planning department, who is one person. And so what we'd like to do with this provision is just give us an opportunity to clarify with the requester if they do want to put in multiple requests at the same time. What is your priority and what would you like us to work on first so we can produce and successfully complete that and move to the next priority. So just asking that we can communicate with the requester and ask them what's the most important so our staff knows where to focus and where to dedicate their time.
And hopefully also helpful to the requester as to which ones they want us to start working on first. So other than that, that really is the changes in the policy. The one thing I did do is just make reference when it came to fees to the city's fee resolution, so that when we change that, I don't have to also change the policy every time.
So I seem to remember that there was a bill that went before the legislature about reaching out to requesters to do exactly what we're doing. And I thought that failed to change in the state law.
As far as the prioritizing.
I could be wrong on that, but I know there was a discussion and a bill that went forward, but I don't remember the resolution of the bill.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. Well, could be, it's a topic that comes up in the legislature a lot. There's nothing specific in the Public Records Act that either prohibits, restricts the city from asking these types of questions. You know, there are certain questions we can't ask of a requester, but questions such as this that help us manage their request, understand their request, and process their requests along with whatever else all is coming in. That's all fair game and appropriate questions.
Okay.
Any other questions for the clerks?
So yeah, just looking for council to adopt resolution 2023-11, which would be the revised Public Records Act policy.
All right, can we get a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution 2023-11, updated Public Records Act policies.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, great work, appreciate it. Let's go to the next item, which is Coast Construction Group contract for the construction of the Sunset Beach Park dock replacement project. And I think that's going to be Aaron.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Great.
The city Public Works Department advertised for bids for construction of the Sunset Beach dock to happen concurrently with the park improvements. We opened bids a few weeks ago or a week or so ago. And the engineer's estimate was $250,000 for that dock to be replaced. The low bid was $350,000. We have $100,000 budget shortfall. The cost of the dock to replace it, just so you know, based on per square foot, it's about $400 per square foot. But the work, they're replacing many of the piles. It's a full rebuild. It's not stripping the decking and replacing it. It's going to be just about a brand new dock. There's a fair amount of in-water work. They have to remove the old piles. The contractor does and drive new piles. They have to work from the lake side. They're not going to work from the land side. So it's a significant project. Anyway, the proposal here is that the savings from the park project, because bids came in under the engineer's estimate. So the savings combined with a budget, an amendment to the budget of $40,000 from REIT 2 will fund the shortfall to construct the dock project. So my suggestion is that we go ahead and do the project this year. The park's going to be closed with the other improvements. And the bid is from the same contractor that's doing the other improvements. They're mobilizing the same time. And the fish window is key. Our permits have been issued. We need to do the work July through August. So we're kind of under the gun to do the work. So I suggest that the council makes a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the contract with Coast Construction Group for construction of the Sunset Beach dock project. Any questions?
Any questions, motion?
So we're talking a dock of about 90 feet. Does the square footage increase from present size?
It's essentially the same. Yeah, 720 square feet.
So no boats are allowed to dock at this. It's a swim dock.
It's a
essentially.
pier, yeah.
Okay.
Swim pier.
350 grand. Crazy.
One of the big costs on that is the piling, right? There's no one who does that anymore. There's one guy. And it's the same guy who did our pilings last year at Davies. So it just gets really expensive.
Someone needs to take up that.
What's that?
Someone needs to take up that business.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Making a motion. Or not.
How many bids did we, I'm sorry, did we receive any bids? You said this was the lowest bid. Engineer's estimate at 225,000. How many bids did we receive?
We received one bid.
That's it?
That's it. And we encouraged and reached out to contractors, advertised rigorously, and just still received one bid.
And this is the same company that did Davies.
Well, the piling guy is the company who's doing the Sunset Beach is this company. So they're already going to be on scene.
Yeah.
Anything else for Aaron?
This is just a horrendous amount of money for 720 square feet. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're talking graded, I'm assuming, to meet the fish requirements and all that mumbo jumbo and stuff. And ADA accessible and ladders for people to get out of the water and.
Yes.
I feel you on this, but.
I know, what do you
about
do?
Affordability, just it's hard to have some affordability when there's only one bidder and.
I know.
All the requirements that we have to provide as a city. I think it's ridiculous. Anyone on the private sector doing a dock doesn't pay anywhere near this. But because we're a government agency.
Do I hear a motion?
Not yet, you don't.
Mary, you look anticipatory on something.
Yeah, I just was wondering how many people would be served by that who live in Lake Stevens? Have we ever analyzed that, Aaron, at all? I mean, what part of our town would be would that be a plus for? Do you think?
Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good Sarah question. Yes, it is. Here she comes.
Thank you. I'll say this is our smallest location for access around the lake, but as a reminder, it's one of our very few. You do only have Davies, you have Lundin, you have North Cove, you have Sunset, you have no other public access. Whenever you drive by, this parking lot is full. In fact, when I drove here tonight, there were 3 additional cars parked vertically behind your inward vehicles. You often have vehicles lying down the entire way and they walk in. I will say this park is heavily used, although we don't have statistics about visitors versus non-visitors. Parks are important. If you do not do it this year, prices may very well increase next year. And you will also have to face closing this location 2 times, 2 summers in a row, or put it off for another summer. And I'll tell you, the condition of our docks are not going to continue to last. We are going to have to start shutting down some of these facilities before they're able to be repaired if we keep putting them off. So I would just encourage you to think about timeline. If we don't do it now, we don't have time to go back out to a bid and meet the fish window for this year. I promise to be working far in advance and getting accurate costs as best as possible for our future capital projects. I know this one's expensive, but I also know it's important to the community.
What's the estimated life of this dock?
I would say that most of our docks are,
No, not the docks we have, the estimated life of this new dock.
I would say that because it's metal and grading, that would be at least a minimum of 40 years. I can see that some of our pilings are as old as 50 years around the dock currently. Do you have other information, Aaron?
I think that's a good estimate. FEMA has a life of facility matrix. We could certainly look that up and get you an actual number.
So this is besides the grates, which are plastic, this is a steel decking dock? Is that what you indicated? You said steel.
I believe that didn't we go with fiberglass on this one, or did we use the plastic?
It's a fiberglass deck, but the framing is aluminum. It's
And the pilings are steel.
right. Yeah, galvanized.
And our current docks, for the records, are all wood, including the pilings.
Right.
So you'll be swimming on it for the next 40 years.
It's gonna outlast us.
Well, so I actually have a question on that. What utility do we lose at the site without a dock? What can people do with a dock there that they couldn't do without it?
Likely people would not be fishing from the bank, or if they did, it would impede with the recreational swimming area. And then you limit how many people can actually access the water from the bank. And so docks are commonly used not only for ingress and egress out of the water, but they're also additional usable land.
Sorry, forgive my ignorance in this. What do you mean it limits the number of people that could access the water? I mean, I'm just imagining people walking down and getting in the water.
Sure. I think simply you can only have so many people lined up on water or so far away from the bank. And so it condenses your usable space, as most people won't be 50 feet out into the water for longer times.
Okay, so when you say access, you don't mean literal access. You're talking about like setting up a towel and having a place to spread out.
Usability.
Gotcha. Okay. It's a lot of money to spread people out and fish.
Kids jump off the dock. It's a really steep park. I mean, unless we get a big run on other people who want to do pilot driving next year.
Yeah.
I'll move approval of awarding the contract to Coast Construction for the construction of the Sunset Beach Park Dock replacement project in the amount of, what is it, $350,000 and $350,057.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's go forward to 12D, which is SR 9 and SR 204 landscaping maintenance agreement with WASDOT. Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So in your council packet, you have a maintenance agreement between the city and WashDOT to maintain the landscaping, gateway signs, sidewalks, buffer areas around the recent intersection improvements at State Route 9 and 204 and the other roundabouts in the area, in that immediate area. This does not include the sound walls, just so it's essentially everything, but it also does not include cleaning of the stormwater facilities either. So it really is focused on the gateway sign, sidewalks, buffer areas, and landscaping. So what we did is we took a look at the area. It's about 65,000 square feet of landscaping, which is not a small amount. It's more than an acre. It's like an acre and a half of landscape, right? So thousands of plants. What the agreement obligates us to do is remove litter, replace dead plants, trim plants, keep it cleanly, and control weeds, clean the sidewalks, maintain some of the irrigation if we decide to keep it. Pesticide, herbicide application we would need to do. Of course, you would want to control the weeds, so you didn't necessarily have to pull them all manually. So we did a level of service estimate, and we in your packet, you'll see that there are 3 levels of service. In fact, I might just go ahead and share it so everyone can see it. How about that? Okay. Okay. Gosh, that's hard to see. So there are 3 levels of service. There's a high, medium, and low levels of service. And essentially the key difference is the high level of service is weekly maintenance, weekly litter removal, weekly weeding, and weekly graffiti removal. Okay, very high level of service. We're talking about $165,000 in labor costs with materials at 31 for around $200,000 to keep this thing. It'll look beautiful, right? And we're in terms of staff, additional staff, 1.71 FTE. It's more than an acre. There are thousands of plants. There are thousands of vehicles going through. It's going to generate a fair amount of garbage, a lot of garbage. It's going to attract some vandals. It's going to be a maintenance effort. The medium level of service is monthly service. So monthly litter removal, monthly weeding, monthly graffiti removal. Okay. The cost estimate for that's about $78,000. 0.62 full-time employees, FTE. And then there's a low level of service, quarterly service of those 3 things. And the cost estimates 52,000 with a 0.33 FTE. And why you're seeing that low, medium, there's not a huge difference between medium and low. It's really the materials that we're consuming is the key difference. So let me scroll down here and to show you how much work the team put into it. It's here are the areas that will be maintained. So beginning at 4th Street, the landscaping and sidewalks, if there are any in that area, there aren't any. Primarily the landscaping and the landscaping around the detention pond. The sidewalks and landscaping at Marketplace, the intersection of Marketplace and State Route 9. Fair amount of sidewalk there. There are those low walls. Okay. And then both of the roundabouts, right? The landscaping in the roundabouts and the extensive landscaping around the roundabouts. And then to the north as it sort of tapers back into the old section of State Route 9. So here's the cost estimate. It is difficult to see. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. Again, here's the high, medium, low. What I did do is I took the liberty of preparing a cost estimate for graffiti removal on the sound walls. Again, 1 week, weekly, monthly, quarterly. You can see maintaining sound is going to have a significant cost as well. That is not part of this contract. It's just of current interest. So what I'm asking you to consider is if you approve, authorize the mayor to sign this contract, think about the level of service that you expect. WashDOT's not requiring high, medium, or low levels of service. They're sort of saying, you know, there are certain things you do have to do. You have to give us a traffic control plan every year. You have to tell us what you're going to be doing. You know, you should remove litter at a reasonable rate. But the council, you might have a different expectation. You might want that area to look wonderful. And I understand that. But there's cost. So if you're interested in signing this contract, this maintenance agreement with WashDOT, which we have been previously, and they put in all of this landscaping, added this to their project under the assumption that the city would maintain it, sort of a handshake agreement. Think about the level of service you expect. And we will bring a proposal for additional resources so we can maintain that level of service out there. Any questions?
So in part of the paper here, it says of note, the city will not become responsible for the maintenance until WashDOT accepts the project and the warranty period extends, and maybe 2 to 5 years from now.
That's correct.
So we're looking at signing a contract. It may not have to have it do anything on this for 2 years.
That's correct.
But we're going to be looking ahead in the next 2 or 3 budget cycles to bring 2 more people on. Just to help with this.
Yes.
So if I may jump on his question, so what's the level of service we expect out of WasDOT for the next 2 to 5 years?
For the sound walls, for the asphalt?
Well, they have it for the next 2 to 5 years until we actually take it over. So
Yeah.
what's the level of service we expect out of them and how do we hold them to that?
Well, we won't have a contract with them to hold them to a level of service, and I don't think that they have any permit conditions. So we will work to hold them to a high level of service as we have with the sound walls and had recent success.
Okay.
We'll just have to ride them a little bit.
Yeah.
If you will.
Yes, it'll be good to document their level of maintenance and service so that if we get any feedback from them regarding our level after we take it over, we'll have something to compare to.
Yeah. Can I also, I'll add to that. We're not going to take on a depreciated asset. So at the end of their warranty period, we're not going to say, okay, great, we're going to go, now we have to go replace everything we did. We're going to make sure it's up to.
Sure.
That was my concern, that Bush is dying off. They kind of curtail their stuff after 1.5 years, and then all of a sudden we have to spend a bunch of money to get it back.
Yeah.
Where we want it.
Yep.
This may come as no surprise to anybody, but I will not support a contract that does not include the sound wall graffiti removal. We've got extensive walls in this city, and in light of the mayor's desire to have ivy coming off that, who would maintain that? It seems to me it's an all or nothing proposition. We have a new billboard that was just constructed in front of the Chevron station. That's a very nice retaining wall, and I can just see WashDOT maintaining that to the level of service that they do along Interstate 5. That would just be a great addition to our city. So again, I would not support any contract that does not include sound wall graffiti removal.
Was that a sticking point with them? Was there an issue with that, or just not negotiate?
They just view them as 2 different things. And so their sound walls, their bridge group maintains the sound walls, and the group we're working with is more of the capital group. And so I understand that.
It's a matter of cost, what you're proposing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the low amount of $13,000 a year, of which for the first 2 years, we don't have to do anything, right? That's a drop in the bucket versus what the detrimental effect would have on our community with graffiti everywhere. I think it's kind of silly that we don't include it. It's a nice project right now, and it looks good. It's an asset to the city, and to replicate what's along I-5 south of Everett, it's like, gee whiz.
Councilmember Peter Shigan, we did meet with WashDOT last week. Several people on their team. And as Aaron suggested, there will be an agreement coming forward that deals with the sound walls separately. So the landscaping is the immediate issue. And we talked about multiple strategies for ongoing control of graffiti on the sound walls, and that's been a discussion among several departments. So it's not forgotten at all. It just would come forward under a separate action to the council to ensure that we have control and a path forward to remove and mitigate any graffiti that happens.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Would the numbers be similar to what you're projecting here?
No, the numbers actually are up there. And so the high level service for graffiti removal is about $51,000 a year. Medium is $21,000 a year and low is $13,000 a year for the city to maintain it. And that's part of the reason I included that is it's on our mind. And we're trying to work through it. We've worked through the landscaping portion. We're ready to go with this agreement now. Yeah, and I do expect us to bring back another agreement for the sound wall maintenance.
I guess I'd like to see that agreement in tandem with this agreement. I don't know why it's separated. I mean, is there some legal issues or something as to why the maintenance of sound walls is separate from all this other stuff?
So in terms of process, the history of it, the city asked WashDOT to construct a project that included extensive landscaping and sidewalks. Right. They did it. They obliged. They paid for that additional work. There was like I said, there was a handshake agreement between the city and the WashDOT that the city would maintain this landscaping and sidewalks. That's what this is what's before you now. WashDOT's eager to have that signed because they want to fulfill. They would like us to fulfill our end of the deal. The sound walls are a completely separate thing. They were a necessary element of the project. They're WashDOT's property. We didn't ask them to change anything, but again, they're similar in that the aesthetic of the project could be affected. It's just we've kind of treated them differently in the history of it, I suppose.
Yeah, well, this agreement is narrow in respect to what is the city's obligation to maintain.
So why don't we just wait for the other one to come in and then we do them together?
Yeah, I don't see why I don't get it. Why we're separating the two. I mean, it's an all or nothing deal.
I understand where you're coming from. The difference is WashDOT modified their project, added a lot of things under the assumption the city would maintain them. That's what's in front.
And I agree. We're not saying we're not going to maintain these, correct? We'd just like to have some added language that says we're going to maintain the to mitigate the graffiti, the potential graffiti on the wall. That's all we're asking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that a big deal?
Is that something we need to go back to WashDOT with and discuss that, or?
Well, it's a significant lift, but it's not impossible. And I don't think there's necessarily any time sensitivity. We're 2 to 5 years out before we have to start doing this thing. So it's not the end of the world, but it's a significant lift. We're going to have to amend the agreement, put it back in front of the Attorney General's office of the state. It's
go for it.
Not impossible. And it's not unreasonable.
I understand that we have a handshake agreement with them, but it sounds like we want this other piece to be part of it. So that way we know we don't have graffiti on our walls, that we have an organization that just doesn't take care of it at the level we want.
And I would say we're all nodding our heads that we are going to take care of this landscaping at a future date. So I guess I'd go back to them and say, the intention of the council is to accept that responsibility, but we would like to have some, issue with the mitigating the graffiti if it occurs. Maybe it doesn't occur. Let's hope not. But it seems like, I don't think we're asking for a lot here. So I guess I would say add that language and send it back.
Okay.
And again, with our good intentions that we do anticipate, taking care of that.
I guess that's one thing I do want to make sure I'm clear on is because we're not actually at the negotiating table. I know how I would feel if at the last minute somebody came back and said, by the way, I want to add something. I just want to get your sense of how that will play because we know what we intend and we know that we want to follow through, but if you sit down with someone from WashDOT and say, oh, one more thing, is it gonna protract this? And are they gonna kind of, wall up? Like, what's this gonna do, in your opinion, to the negotiation?
I don't, it's difficult to say. Councilmember Donahue, it's a different group. Again, the bridge group maintains the walls. We're kind of dealing with the project team right now. I don't necessarily know what the implications are. So I'd want to find out. I am interested in understanding or perhaps leveraging our interests a little bit. So yeah, I think that's an interesting idea that we would, like the mayor said, we would say, okay, great, we're gonna have this really high level of service. We're promising this thing once the warranty period is complete, you've accepted the project. But in the interim, we expect you to do the same. So I think that might be an interesting strategy with them right now.
Interesting question, but if you're relieving an obligation from somebody, why wouldn't they accept that?
I don't know why this is a bad thing.
Yeah.
No, I agree that, but I'm trying to look at it as that's our perspective. We don't think it's a bad thing, but if someone came to me last minute and was like, hey, I want to modify that handshake deal, we had to include one more thing, kind of just
include one more thing. You're taking away one more thing.
Right. But maybe this is the cynical part of me. If someone came back last minute and said, I want to add something, my reaction is why? What are you trying to get? And maybe it would resolve itself. It wouldn't be a big deal, but maybe, like I said, maybe that's the cynic in me. So I just want to make sure the people who are face to face actually negotiating this, what's their read on it? Maybe the person you talked to WashDOT is not as cynical as I am.
Yeah. One option is to just kick this down the road and let us propose that to WashDOT. Look, we'd like to incorporate the sound wall into the agreement. City'd like to take on maintenance of the graffiti, the on the walls, not the wall structure themselves, similar to the landscaping, and see what they say.
The one thing that I could add to this is we're already taking over graffiti on everything else. Right? I mean, it says graffiti, except on the sound wall.
Yes, yes.
So if we're already taking graffiti every place else, like maybe on our sign that we're going to be putting up in the middle of the thing, which I'm pretty sure is going to get tagged pretty quickly, then what's the big deal of taking over the sound wall? Graffiti of the sound wall, not maintenance of the sound wall, but graffiti. I just don't get it. We need to add it in there and take responsibility for the whole thing, get it all done. And then if it's going to take another half an FTP for that, then fine.
I'll also mention we only have 15 minutes left before we have to extend the meeting.
I just want to raise one point. This will be a completely different crew of people from WashDOT that we'll be dealing with. And I just want to make that differentiation. Right now, we're dealing with landscape in this proposal. And WashDOT's a huge organization with thousands of employees. So that's why it is brought forward as a separate agreement, because it's the group that deals with landscaping. So as Director Halverson has mentioned, we'll go back to the bridge group that's responsible for the sound walls and bring another proposal back that's with them. Also has to go through the AG's office. That's the difference.
Well, Aaron, why don't you explore this for us, and let's come back after the break with what you've explored. Okay, does that work for everybody?
Sure.
Great. All right, let's table that discussion then, and we will move to discussion item intro to 2024 budget process. Barb.
Great. Okay. Let me get my presentation up for you guys here. Share.
Can hear you loud and clear, Barb. Loud
Can
and
you
clear.
have does it sound like I'm screaming?
Oh, we're turning you down. We're turning you down a little bit.
Good. Okay, I'll whisper for now.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Let's get this going for you. I have a lot of screens open right now, so it's
No, it's a good volume.
okay. Now let me get rid of this. And then it's going on the wrong screen. So let me share a different screen with you. This is not doing me very well. Sorry. Can't make it go on that screen. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, now let me do this. Okay. Are you, oh, no, not yet. Now are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we can see your
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to go into the intro for the 2024 budget. I just want to go through the background on the budget. We have a couple of council members that I don't know if they're in the audience or watching that will be their first time going through a budget process. So just some background, budget is the legal document, forecasts the financial resources of a government and authorizes spending of those resources for the fiscal period. For the city of Lake Stevens, we do an annual budget and our fiscal period is January 1st through December 31st. Any expenditures that are budgeted at the end of the year have not been spent do not automatically roll forward. We do bring those forward as a budget amendment to council for the next year if they are needed at that point. Some budget basics, legal requirements for budgets in a code city are under RCW 35A33. They outline the dates and legal requirements for a budgeting process. Additionally, the state auditor's office have outlined the requirements as well as the budget calendar, budget schedule. Some things within those requirements include that the city must hold public hearings on the proposed tax levy and the budget. So we do budget hearing for revenues and then also for adopting the budget. So at a minimum, the budget must show revenues and expenditures at the legal fund level. So that's general fund, street fund, stormwater fund. So at that level, council also must approve salary ranges and the number of FTEs citywide at a minimum. So looking at our budget process timeline for 2023 for our 2024 budget, the budget process starts in July with priority discussions with the mayor and the city council. Then the creation of the base budget and the 6-year forecast. Then to do that, we do revenues are projected based on trends for outside sources and resources such as WCIA. That's our Washington Cities Insurance Authority. They deal with our insurance rates. AWC, MRSC, we get resources from them, including the annual budget suggestions and revenue expectations. Expenditures are generally based on the current staffing levels. So for 2024, we'll start with a base level of 2023 staffing levels, current programs, levels of service with some initial increases for things like fuel costs and communications. So that will happen in early August. We'll send out a request and instructions to department heads. And then by late August this year, all requests will be compiled for presentation to the city administrator and mayor, and then ready for the council budget discussions, which will occur throughout September and October. If all goes well, the post-final budget is made available to the public and ready for public hearings at the end of October for this year. This is a little earlier than prior years due to how the meeting dates align with RCW budgeting requirements. So we are losing about 2 weeks this year just due to how the dates fall with our council meetings. This is a look at our draft budget schedule. The items highlighted in blue are council meetings or council presentations. So this is obviously the introduction to the budgeting, then budget instructions. These all are draft dates depending on what happens, but budgets will go out to department heads in early August. They'll come back to me. I put them together, present them to city administrator, mayor, and then we look to do an executive staff budget roundtable. That's with all the department heads, the mayor and city administrator, kind of go over the budget and the request as a whole, get that ready for council meetings. So your first council meeting back, we want to go ahead and do the estimated revenues and preliminary budget to council, just to kind of get us back rolling into budget season. Then we'll go through a number of meetings, including going over the staffing and wages, and then going over the mayor's preliminary budget, capital budget, hopefully finalizing the preliminary or proposed budget by mid-October. Then we'll do all of the notifications, all the requirements, getting the budget made available to the public, and have our first public hearing October 24th. So normally our first public hearing would be our first regular meeting in November, but how things are falling, we actually have to have our final council meeting, the final public hearing, including the continuation by December 4th. And so we won't have an opportunity to do a meeting prior to that in December. So although the budget doesn't technically need to be adopted by council until December 31st, we have to have our final public hearing and have everything basically solidified by November 28th. And that's if we need a final public hearing continuation. Normally, the only time in my experience that we have had to do a continuation of the final public hearing was due to a snow event. And we canceled one of those public hearings. So it doesn't normally happen, but it does need to be there just in case. So looking at our 2024 budget priorities, these are actually our 2023 priorities, and they are multi-year processes. So at this point, we are continuing them as our priorities in 2024. Just as a reminder, our APWA accreditation is multi-year undertaking. The work is being done citywide, as Director Halverson had just shown you the lean process over the APWA accreditation. So our risk manager is tracking this, and all of this is performed by staff. So this is continuing into 2024. Transportation program enhancements. As you know, the voters approved the TBD transportation benefit sales tax for transportation sidewalks, walkways, and pavement preservation. 2024, we will continue with the transportation benefit priority program. Park and Recreation program, newly formed Park and Recreation Department. It is established and obviously growing, so we'll continue working towards that. And then capital project completion, very important. A lot of capital projects were budgeted in 2023. A number of those will roll forward into 2024, depending on when some grants are available. Some are, we're on hold with some of those. So those will be continuing to 2024. I know a request for capital projects just went out by the city engineer in the last couple of days, requesting all of upcoming potential projects for 2024 to be sent to her so she can put those together in a packet. Additionally, the city, as we mentioned, the lean expert on staff, we do continue to streamline citywide processes in an effort to increase levels of service and increase efficiencies. And then, of course, we want to continue to attract and support city staff in order to retain them through the years. So this year, we're continuing the process of departmental budgeting. So for legal reporting purposes, I mentioned we continue to budget at the fund level. But we also continue to enter the budget into the financial system by line item. So that way, if department heads need to move budget around, they only need to provide information to the finance to make the adjustments versus needing to come back to council just to move money from a professional service line item into a supply line item. There are some exceptions to this, as some expenditures are set by finance and are not considered flexible. Those include salaries, benefits, number of FTEs. Those all need to go through council to be changed. So once we have the salary range in place, the benefits and number of FTEs, if those are going to change, that does need to come back to council. Additionally, WCIA liability insurance, and then also our debt and capital contributions. Once council determines the amount of funding put into the capital equipment funds, then that is the amount that stays that way until gone back to council for additional approval if needed. So looking at our department staff flexibility, each department will have budgeted number of positions and budgeted dollar amount. That includes current staffing levels. As I mentioned, we'll start with 2023 staffing levels. We'll add the approved COLAs and insurance rates. Departments are given the flexibility to do some reorganization or classification within their department without council approval. And we added this if. So I added if it's a similar position. So we talked about last year not switching out a field staff for an administrative position, that type of thing. So this year I added just the wording similar position. A planner for an associate planner or something along those lines. And then if the number of budgeted FTEs does not increase, and then the salary benefit budget does not increase. Otherwise, everything has to go back to council for approval. Our capital equipment, we do have a couple of multi-year programs going on. Police vehicle replacement plans and citywide fleet lease programs. Those are evaluated annually to determine what additional is needed for the upcoming year. So that gets rolled into the budget. And then also we roll forward remaining equipment budget. And then looking at those equipment budgets, last year we did, council did initially review and approve the request, and then allowed council or departments to make needs-based adjustments throughout the year, as long as the total fund expenditure did not exceed the budget, or if council specifies otherwise. So if there's some specific thing that council is for and they're approving, then that's just something that we need to know in advance, and we will not include that in the available option to move things around. So no budget amendment is needed in those unless council deems otherwise. And this is a look at some actual things upcoming in 2024. As I mentioned, yeah.
Can I get you hold for a second?
Sure.
Executive session is going to need 30 minutes. 25, okay. Can I get a motion to extend this meeting to 8:40?
Include the executive session.
Correct. Hey, scouts, before you leave, I want to make sure I see your report from this meeting. We got that? I'd love to read it. Thank you.
30 pages, single line.
Okay.
Move to extend the city council meeting till 8:40.
Second.
Okay, motion second, any discussion?
I think that we always go over. I think we need to balance our time a little bit better for these meetings.
Yeah.
It's always going over 2 hours. The process that we go through, this is so significantly long to just get to our first topics. So
Yeah.
I think we need to look at our budgeting of time.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes, opposed.
Okay. Motion passes. Go ahead, Barb.
Okay, so good news is this is almost my last slide. So looking at 2024 staffing estimates, as I mentioned, we start with the 2023 budgeted FTEs. Right now, we have 124 full-time FTEs budgeted, 2 part-time and 7 temporary. This is the news that we received. We were going to do this presentation last Tuesday, but we knew the CPIW was supposed to be coming out on Wednesday, so we wanted to make sure we were able to include that in this information. So we use the CPIW June to June for cost of living adjustment planning. In 2020 for 2024, it is 4.5%. Historically, the city has used a limit factor of 90% of CPI, which will be about 4%. And that equals approximately $443,000 citywide if this was used for all union and non-union. Just of note, the guild non-commissioned under contract right now is at 90% of CPIW with a maximum of 4%. So that is actually right in line with what they already have in their contract. Some insurance benefit estimates are medical, which is Regents and Kaiser, are a kind of a wide range between 4% and 9%. Our dental, which is Delta and Willamette, is 0 to 3% increase, and then vision is between 0 and 2% increase. We won't know the final rate until September, the end of September from AWC. So we'll get those updated when we can. The city estimate on that, obviously, since it's a pretty wide range, $84,000 to $204,000. And Just to note, about 65% of all staffing is charged to the general fund. So of that 443, it's about $290,000 for the COLA, if that's what we go forward with. And then on the high end of medical and benefits, it's about $130,000. And that was the last I have for now. So I do have it in here, council discussion. I know we're running out late at this time. The mayor and I discussed the council priority, well, our budget priorities for 2024. And as I mentioned, at this point, we're just rolling forward our 2023 priorities and continuing in the same direction. But if council has any priorities or initiatives that they would like to look at, please reach out to the mayor and get those passed through. If you have any questions on the budget or any procedural questions, please let me know. And as I mentioned, the schedule is in a draft form at this point, but is looking at everything we can and attempting to get that done on time.
Any questions for Barb? Path forward. All right, hearing none, Barb, great job. Appreciate your work on it, and we'll look forward to the next budget process season. And let's move to executive session. We have two topics tonight for executive session, collective bargaining, as well as collective bargaining litigation and potential litigation. There's no action required or expected after each of those topics. So we ask if you are not pertinent to those discussions, to exit the room. And when we do return, we will just adjourn.
So we'll go for 25 minutes and be back at 8:30.
Perfect. We're back in the session. Adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a great evening.